Hey there, viewers, welcome back to the South Main Auto Channel. Got a 13 Ford Escape. It's got the big 2.0, and apparently it doesn't start. However, I drove it in, but the guy showed me a little trick. He's been working on it for a while. He's at his wit's end. He's made a call on the BCM, wants to know if he's correct, so we're going to take a look at it and see if that's what it is. And if it is, I guess we'll have to source out a new one. If not, we'll find out what the real problem is. But other than that, that's all I know. In order to get the vehicle running, he showed me you hook the battery up, and then you take the wire here, and you shove the wire into the battery post, and then you stick it down inside the fuse box next to this fuse here. And then the car will start and run. And indeed it did, because that's how I got it in last night, ahead of the snow. And then that's all I've done. I just wanted to get it in so it wasn't covered with snow. So I say we keep this in our mind, that we shove it back here in the fuse box and the car starts. That's good to know. He did tell me, however, if you have that shoved in there, it doesn't make the car, drivable per se. I guess it throws, a bunch of codes and things like that. So I say we leave the rigging out. We'll hook the battery up, we'll throw a maintainer on it, and then we'll just kind of take our diag as we normally would, just bearing that in mind if that can help us shortcut the process along the way. So I'm gonna hook up the battery. I'm gonna take and grab a maintainer, throw a battery maintainer on it, because we're gonna have the key on for a while. We'll get a scan tool on it. I don't know how many codes are set because of doing this or things that he was doing. He says he'd been working on it for a while and he's just at his wit's end. So let's do that. We may, I guess what I was getting at is we may clear all the codes out of it that are currently in it, and then, let's kind of get a fresh start here. So I'll show you where we're at, folks. Key on, engine off, of course. I've read all the codes out of it. Here's everything that pops up. Well, initially, my first initial read, it was, 79 codes, but I went through and cleared it. And then we'll go to a report here. And this thing is just littered full of codes. Ambient temp, intake air temp. Of course, the guy was telling me about some of this, and but you can see here that, this thing is just, full of loss of comm codes. You name it, it's in here. So just give you guys kind of the quick rundown there. So that's what's going on with it. It doesn't crank. It doesn't really do anything. It carries on, and you'll kind of hear it clicking on and off and doing some weird things out here periodically, and some dingers going off. I do have some direction though, and that being this here, this ignition on relay. So this is the codes out of the body control module, and for about, I don't know, half hour, 40 minutes here, I've just been going through all the codes, just kind of looking to see if something really sticks out to me, what can be causing this, plus what we know from the customer, where he says, he's shoving this wire in the fuse box and got it running. So I was looking at this ignition on relay code, and I also pulled up a wiring diagram to see, where this relay is, what controls it. Can this make the whole thing not start? Does this crash input have anything to do with it? Does that disable it if it thinks it's been in a crash? Just all kinds of stuff. And let me show you what I think we have going on here. I know this isn't really ideal, just pointing at the screen here, folks, but it's how we're gonna do it for right now. Here's our ignition relay. And that's one that we have the code in the body module for, something going on with this ignition relay. We know that the customer says that the fuse box isn't powering up, or certain fuses in it. So I just looked at this relay to see where it is, what controls it. It is controlled from the body control module, so that makes sense that it has a code in it, whether this opening this wire or something going on here with the relay. And if this relay doesn't work, I wanted to know what would not work if the relay wasn't working. And the answer is a whole lot of stuff. So this entire row of fuses here, number 37 up through 44, 46, a couple other random fuses. Not to mention, if we follow this diagram around, the PCM power relay doesn't work either. So there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work without this ignition relay. So my question is, if we bypass this relay, this ignition relay, could we just bypass it? Does the car start and run and seem to kind of act normal? Do we still have a bazillion codes that are just sending us just on a wild goose chase? So I still have the key on currently. Now this here is the ignition relay. We'll pull that baby out. Somebody's had her out before. She's got the crush mark in it. Got us a test light here. We're just gonna hook to a ground. I'm assuming we should have a couple powers here. Okay, we do. So we have a couple powers. Let's look at this relay. So we got the two bigger terminals here, number 1 and 5, or 3 and 5. So we're gonna have a power. Yep, and that would be the other one. That's a power. So this one over here should be a control. This should be the ground from the BCM. And we don't have a ground there, so we have no control turning this relay on. So nothing's telling this relay to turn on at the moment. We can go like this. Might be able to reach it. Stick that in there. We'll hook our ground back up and we'll try to just trigger the relay. I don't know if I can reach it or, it's got a little piece of plastic in the way here. Oh. All right, well, we just heard, can you guys hear that? I tell you what, well, let me get something, hold on. Let's do this because we want to see, right now, this row of fuses up here, these are all dead. And this whole row of fuses down here are not dead. Okay. All right, but this is the row up here that is dead. And those are fuses 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, so on, that we were seeing on the diagram there that were controlled by this ignition on relay. So I got a relay bypass here. We're just gonna bypass it so we can still use our test light. Okay, now all these little guys are alive again. Okay, so that livens up the fuse box, essentially what he was doing by, you know, shoving that piece of wire in there. So let's just go like this real quick. I don't know if you guys will be able to see this. I've got too many lights glaring on in here. We're gonna let it go through a quick erase, and then we'll rescan it and see if everybody appears to be happy. And so far it looks like possibly, because we're getting a lot of green lights here. So that can really change our focus. Let's see, we'll just do a fault scan again. I'll let it go through here and rescan. Technically the car should start and run at this point. I mean, we did drive it in with that jumper wire in there. Yeah, it looks like so far just one code there in the driver's door module. It's probably because we got the window down or something. Okay. And then, okay, I think that gives us good direction. Customer helped us shortcut this one a little bit, which is great. Don't know how he got to his conclusion, but we're gonna steal it for now. Let's just start the vehicle. It should start. Probably won't run until we turn that off, but let's just make sure it starts anyways. Contact. I just shut the key off, but it's still running. Okay, so we learned something here. All right, I just wanted to turn the key back on. It's a push button start. We'll turn this back on, and that turns everything on. Let's change all of our focus from anything we were thinking to what controls the ignition relay. What turns this on? We know, I guess we know a couple things. We know this relay is good, because we jumpered when it was in here. Let's put that back in there. Kind of take some of the facts that we know if we apply a ground to the control side. Go and get back under there. Okay, so if we apply a ground to the control side, we hear everything turn on. And then by simply bypassing the relay, we know the other parts of it are good. So everything from here out should be good. The only thing we don't know is why the body control module is not turning that on, and if the wiring from here to the body control module is any good. But we did learn a couple things. So let's go with what we know. and kind of take it from there. I'll put this maintainer back on there, and let's see what we can figure out now that we have kind of more of a pinpoint testing that we can do. So I think what we want to do is I want to pop in the body control module before we even look at too much, and I just want to look through some live data. Now I've been down through some of this already, and I just want to pay closer attention to anything that looks abnormal. I want to look at, like, you know, ignition switch inputs, you know, anything that, you know, just kind of jumps out to me. Okay, so here we got ignition switch, run position, accessory position. Let me just push the and I don't know how much of this is generic either, because obviously this is push button start, so I think I'll just kind of keep going here. But sometimes it's good just to grab as much data as you can. Okay, here we go, power moding, ignition on, post accessory, ignition on, push button start request on. Okay, so it does recognize crank mode. Okay, so that's, I guess that's a good thing to know. It's all TPMS junk. I don't really care about TPMS stuff. Vehicle mode normal. Yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah, that all seems to function, and it seems to like everything. That's really making me curious if just the body control module itself has failed. I'm going to active tests here. I don't know if it has anything worth a hoot. Nothing really here that's going to help us. I'm going to let it run through a self-test again. What's really interesting, now that I even just sit here and think about it for a minute, is, well, we got a wiper mode switch, hood switch. Oh, okay. So it does have a lot of issues. Well, we got stuff sitting up on the window. I don't want to kick the wipers on. But I think once we had powered on that ignition relay, I remember when we reread the codes out of it, there wasn't any codes in here. So that's kind of curious that it, you know, fixed all of these codes, so to speak. Let's kind of focus on this ignition on relay, because we know if we get that to turn on, everything works. So we'll kind of disregard some other stuff here, at least for the time being, until we get sidetracked. Let's focus on this ignition on relay. I'm gonna look it up, see what it takes to make that sucker work, and then see if we can come up with a plan. So the great part about this car is everything is ripped to shreds, and he told me don't put anything back together, so it's even better. The body control module lives here behind the glove box, and this is just how we received the car. Now I looked on Mitchell here. I wanted to get the code set criteria for that B10E714, the ignition relay, and that is a circuit short to ground or open is how it's identifying that. And it says the body control module continuously monitors the control side of the ignition relay. This code sets its BCM detects an open or short to ground in the ignition relay control circuit. When this DTC sets, the control side of the ignition relay is disabled via the FET. So that's your transistor, the field effect transistor. Once the condition that caused the code is repaired, BCM must pass a self-test in order to clear the code. System operates as normal. Well, we know one thing for a fact is the control side, so that's what's going to turn that relay on out there. We know that it is not shorted to ground. So it's either open circuited or a bad, body control module. If it was shorted to ground, it would have turned on as soon as we stuck it in, because remember, we poked the control side with the test light and essentially turned it on using my claw hands. So that tells us it's not shorted to ground, so we're either looking at open or possibly a bad BCM. Now, I went back to our diagram, our power distribution diagram, got out my magnifying glass, and I can see the body control module, pin number 14 on connector C2280 delta. So that's what we need to find here, is that connector, and we need to find this particular wire, which appears to be green with purple stripes, so green with violet. And what my plan, I see a lot of green. I'm just looking up here, there's a green with violet there, there's one there, there's one there. So that's a pretty common color on a Ford. I can see somebody's really done the hokey pokey here. Lots of wire poking. Must be they're on the same color wire, because here's a green and violet. It's got a bunch of holes poked in it. Lots of wires here have been poked. So we'll find out which connector that we're supposed to be looking for, and then we'll simply ground the wire in here with our test light. And if that relay turns on, we know our wire's intact. And at that point, then we have to make a call on, whether or not this body control module is bad, which I almost have to assume it is, because looking at scan data, it appears that it has everything else it needs to work. It's seeing the input from the key and all that. It's just not turning on that relay, and we know that once that relay turns on, the car seems to function. So let me find which one of these connectors is the C2280 delta, and then we'll go from there. Okay, I think we're in good shape. There's the connector, C2280. And then here is the pinout. So we got BEGD, BEGD, so it should be this one here. 1 through 9. I'm wondering, let's unplug it. And let's see about taking the cover off here. Has a zip tie on it. Let me get a pair of cutters. We're going to snip that zip tie. We're going to slide it off. That way we can just back probe it while it's plugged in. I think would be our best option. Oops. Let's see, which way does that latch? Okay, so it's going to go that way. Let me get the zip tie cut, and then we'll get that cover off. Alright, so cut the zip tie. What it takes to get this cover off, but let's see if we can't just pop it off here. It looks like it's got a couple little latches there. Yep, so that probably the side latch will probably just pop off, I would think. Okay, so now we'll plug it back in. Alright, so that's plugged in. I set that cap to the side, and it says 10 through 20, and I think we were looking for number 14. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Make sure our wire color matches. So bottom left, got 10, 11, 12, wait a minute, 10, 11, 12, 13. Make sure this is right. I thought we were going for number 14. Oh, wait a minute here. It's because I was looking at it upside down. I was reading from, so we gotta go from the top down. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yep, okay, green with purple. Okay, so let me set this back up here. This is our control wire for the relay that's out under the hood, that ignition relay. Unhook this, we're gonna just get a ground here on anything. Make sure that our test light functions, and it does. Our test light lights up, so if we plug into this, the key is on, we should hear stuff power up. Oh, but I don't. Okay, so that's interesting. All right, that is the correct wire. We are probed in there. Let me go out under the hood and make sure. What are we making sure of? We're making sure, okay, our test light is still good here, and it is. Our test light's still good. I kind of was half expecting that to kick everything on. Let's go out and make sure we did plug that relay in all the way. The other thing we can do is make sure that it doesn't start. Okay, and it does not, and we knew that it did before. Okay, so that's something we know. Yep, and we do have the relay plugged in all the way, and we know this relay was good. No sense of pulling it back out. So that is plugged in all the way. So that's pretty good. That tells us that we likely have an open circuit then. Let's see if that relay command is being turned on. Let's apply power to it. Let's see here. You know what, we should have, this should be lighting a test light right now. We definitely have an open circuit because on the other side of that control of the relay, we have power. We know we had 2 powers at the relay, and we know that we could ground it and it would turn on. So yes, technically our test light should be lit up right now if our body control module was bad. We can make sure that the body control module has the ability to control that circuit. We should be able to. Let me find a circuit down here that's hot. We'll see if we can steal some power from it. So that top one there is hot. Let me see if I can't just probe beside it here. Just with a T-pin. Oops. Let me see if that's hot. Oops. Gotta get it in there. Let me see if any of these open circuits are hot here. Well, I guess I could just hold it on there. So we'll probe that. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We'll probe into that one. And then I'm just gonna hold this on power. We'll probably have to reset the PCM to get it to command this on. Oh no, there it is. So our test light lights up. Can you guys see that? Yeah, just probe this here. Kind of doing this in a foolish way, but I just want to show you just proof of concept here. We can prove that our body. So okay, so that's the control for the ignition relay. You can see it lights up. Let me turn the button off. So that's button off, button on. Okay, that's the control for that relay. So that's a pretty definitive test. We have an open circuit. We either have a broken wire or a bad connection. Awesome. So now that narrowed it way down. At least we don't have to worry about programming a body module or anything. What we need to do at this point is look at a factory diagram and say, where does this wire go that runs that control for that relay? Does it go, through this connector? Any other connectors? Where is it heading? And that should lead us to our problem. We're probably safe to slide this thing back on here. Pretty impressed with this kind of connector here. It seemed to come apart pretty easy as far as gaining access to back probe it. We'll throw a zip tie on that before we're finished. I just want to put this on here so we don't lose it. But that's a pretty good style connector. I like that. Good job, Ford. So I hope you guys are kind of following along at this point. I think we've narrowed it down pretty quick in the sense that we know it appears that the body control module functions, or it's working. But it clearly isn't making the signal all the way to the relay, and that's essentially exactly what the code criteria was, where we left that, basically stating it was either shorted or open circuited in that control side. And we were able to narrow it down to see that A, it's not open, or it's not shorted rather, because we know when we plug it in, you know, it's not kicking that, at least it's not shorted on this side. And then we also found quickly that it was open circuited, because we've seen that the body control module has the ability to control it. You know, we could turn our test light on and off when we applied power. However, when we grounded it, you know, it didn't turn on that relay because, you know, there's no connection from the body control module out to the fuse box. So now we just have, you know, the possibility of, you know, open circuit in a connector, you know, broken wire, you know, fuse box is junk. So I'm going to try to find an OEM wire diagram that's going to show us all the connectors on the system, and then we can come up with some logic. How can we break it down in big chunks and pinpoint right to where we need to get to? So according to the wire diagram, that wire is 100% straight shot. Runs out of that fuse box, up all the way across the firewall, over to the strut, under the battery, and then up into the bottom of the junction box. Now the fella I see has this thing already all loose. I have had experience in the past with these Fords with broken wires near, at, or under the battery box, or behind the brake booster. We've run across that too, you know, with mouse damage and stuff. I'm just gonna kind of poke around here, look with some mirrors. We may pull the air box up out of here just to have kind of a look, a visual inspection, see if we see anything obvious. It would be really nice if we had, you know, another connector so we could split the system in half, but we may at this point just have to do the poke and hope and see if we can find it. Now, a lot of things on this car have been touched. There's a lot of broken stuff, but I'm gonna see what we can do as far as just some visual inspections before we get, you know, kind of too deep here. Get lucky, we might be able to see it. Now in the past, I've always found these broken wires back in this far back corner. I think we did a video on one actually. Different, you know, different symptom, different wire, but I think same car. Just figured we'd take a quick peek there, see if we just get lucky. Kind of hard to see back here, real pain to do anything with, to fix anything back here. The last one, I think we had to look at it with our bore scope to even see back here. I think that was a Fiesta or something we did a video on. Maybe I didn't do a video on it. It had no headlights or something like that, if I remember right. Well, I don't see any mouse damage immediately. I don't smell any either. Okay. I mean, other than what the customer has done, you know, tearing stuff out there, I don't see anything super obvious. You know, like I say, we got some broken bits here. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a goddamn minute here, folks. Oh, let me get you on here for the money shot, boys. I think we might see it. I could be wrong, but I want you to miss it. This may be the money shot straight color wire anyways. I see this wire here. Oh, I didn't even really give you guys a big, just went right for the climax there, I guess. So that's it. That's what's causing all our problems. I'm assuming it's the right color wire. Must have got pinched or something at some point. Something got after it. Like I say, all this stuff was like this when I got here. Unenhanced. Unenhanced. So before you guys start ragging on me for being a hack, this was like this, and the customer requested that I leave everything apart. He's gonna put it all back together. So I guess with that being said, we'll fix this wire, and technically we're either fixing a wire that's the same color, or we found the wire. And I don't want to try not to get in the way here. Let me move you guys. Let me get this wire out of the bigger harness here, get it out. We'll just trim it off, but yeah, it's all green and crusty there. Let me show you. Just trim that end off there. There, the end's trimmed off, but I don't know if you guys, how good that thing will focus, but she's right full of the green pus here. Yeah, well, you just have to take my word for it. Kind of funny that right there completely disables your entire car. You have a nice day. Well, I guess that's it, folks. Just waiting for that to cool down. Just use the crimp and seal connector because I like to trigger people. It's not as big of a trigger as a welder, but it does pretty good. So once that cools down, I'm just gonna, stick it back in the harness. I'll likely clip the box back down for the guy. This was, all unclipped, like I say. And then probably prior to sticking it 100% together, we'll just pop the battery in there to make sure, or at least, slide the tray in there. But that should be it. I mean, that's the right color wire. It would be kind of funny if it wasn't, but not funny at the same time. Give that a few minutes. No idea what hit that. Like I say, all the zip ties and everything are still on here, other than this being unclipped, which I assume this has only been unclipped for a short period of time. Unless this got unclipped sometime in the past and has just been back here rattling around or something. I don't know. It's not a regular customer, so I don't know his his work habits or any history on this car. So we'll see what we can do here. I think they're always kind of silly to put a battery in. The negative's way in the back here. Snug that up and I'll push it in there and put the positive in. Went ahead and cleared the codes. We got it fired up now. I'll just let it go through another fault scan here. Alright, and then driver's door module has a code in it. Front window motor position sensor. Alright, I say we've done pretty good. Starts and runs. Of course, we've got quite a mess in here to clean up now. Everything's all kind of ripped apart. It's kind of dangling around here. But that's all I wanted, and that's all we're doing. I guess it could be nice and relearn this power window here. See if that takes care of that code for him. See if the auto function works now. Ooh, and it does. Okay, let's reread that. Boom. Pop back in there. That should have fixed that code. That's a freebie for you. There you go. Now we got all green lights for now. And the good news is it shuts off with a button. Well, that was that, folks. Kind of a weird one. This thing led me astray with just the vast number of codes and all the different modules and the communication losses, and the ones that led me astray the most were the amount of codes in the body control module, leading me to think that we might have, I guess in my gut, I'll be honest with you, I mean, I thought we were going to have a bad body control module when we first started, just based on the symptoms, the amount of codes that were in it, the weird things it was doing, just sitting here, key on, engine off. I hear stuff clicking on and off, and it was just pretty bizarre. So I didn't want to just jump the gun, order one, and obviously we would have been wrong, so we had to follow some evidence. In the video, through editing and stuff, it seems that this whole job was, pretty cohesive, and it just went nice and smooth in, 30 minutes and, a couple clicks on a computer and boom, we're done. That's not the case. This job took me several hours, and most of that was research, was looking at wire diagrams. How is this all related? Granted, the customer, shoving the wire in the fuse box and doing, some poking and hoping on his end was helpful, because we knew that when he did that, the car started. So that kind of gave us, some clues, got our wheels turning here saying, okay, well, what powers this side of the fuse box? Does that make sense? So that did kind of direct some of my diag. So I don't have a clear mind or thought as to how I would have approached it having not known that. So this is just how we did this one, and that's it. Pretty amazing that one relay not turning on can cause so many problems and can be pretty, mind racking for some folks. But it definitely racked my brain a little bit. We were able to get through it, and that's it. I'm not gonna sit here ramble anymore. Why don't you guys ramble on down in that comment section, off a comment. question, concern, Insta, Facebook. You guys know what to do. Just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.